Simphiwe Nojiyeza, work at the University of Johannesburg in the Department of Anthropology and Development Studies. Well, as an organization, as a university, we work with a number of communities. Some of the communities are affected by displacement when large dams are constructed. Some of the communities, they lack access to water and sanitation. Some communities also lack access to sanitation, adequate sanitation facilities. Obviously, there were floods, flash floods in different parts of South Africa. There was drought in different parts of South Africa. So they are really facing challenges regarding climate variations, variability, and climate change. Well, if you look at drought, for instance, it's not a natural phenomena, but it's really linked to climate variability. It's linked to pollution. We are hosting one of the largest oil refineries in South Durban, which really indirectly lead to precipitation. It lead to flooding. It lead to droughts and a number of other climate variability issues. So they are really linked to pollution. There's a causal relationship between pollution and climate disruptions. Well, from a South African perspective, organizations were established, the networks. For instance, activists working and researchers working in water supply and sanitation, they established what is called the South African Water Caucus. That's from 2002. Previously, there used to be Environmental Justice Networking Forum, which consisted of about 500 participating organizations. They work on broad areas of environmental injustices. We also have Energy Caucus. Those are the special organizations working around issues of renewable energy. And we also have Climate Justice Now. It's also an organization focusing mainly on ensuring that there's climate justice, lobbying government, lobbying international actors, and supporting participants in climate change negotiations. So all of these are some of the initiatives that involve both academics as well as communities out there. Obviously, the difficulties facing civil society organizations generally and also academics researching on environmental justice, one will be lack of adequate resources that will help communities, that will help community activists as well as academia to produce quality research and also to conduct participatory action research and actually helping communities to advocate for issues they believe in. The challenge is resources. The challenge is how to resource organizations. We establish a number of these networks. We normally communicate online, but I don't think we have adequate resources to actually meet on face-to-face basis and actually to monitor all of these campaigns that we established with all of these organizations. So generally, the challenges has to do with institutional capacity, has to do with resources, has to do with office space, has to do with and the fact that it's very difficult to influence government to regulate on pollution, especially because you have industries, you have who are mainly polluters, and you also have the state as a regulator, and then we have civil society organizations. All of them, they are trying to influence government, but the question is to whom should government listen? And those are some of the difficulties because communities, they are at a very small scale, and as much as they raise concerns, but they don't have the institutional capacity that your normal corporate will have in terms of getting an ear to be listened to by government. In the case of South Africa, we need more we have wonderful laws. For example, Environmental Management Act of 1997, which got the precautionary principle, which got the polluter pay principle. The challenge being enforcement of the laws. Chapter, I think Section 27 of our Constitution, Act number 108 of 1996, it talks about an environment that is not harmful to the well-being. It talks about rights to water and sanitation. It talks about the right to health and so on. But the challenge is, how do you translate these wonderful pieces of legislation into holding corporates accountable, into ensuring that there's no acid mine drainage in the mining towns, such as your Mpumalanga province, Gauteng province, Northern Cape, Limpopo, and so on, and also to ensure that there's air quality even in areas where oil refineries are situated, and also to ensure that we put more emphasis on climate change mitigation. We move towards renewable energy technologies. We shift away from coal generation and many of those things. So I think generally the challenge is not that we don't have laws, we don't have the relevant institutions, but the challenge is, how do we enforce legislation, how to ensure, how do we hold polluters accountable in line with the precautionary principle, in line with Section 27 of our Constitution. It's just huge. Of course, environmental justice issues are global issues. They are interlinked with what happened in Copenhagen negotiations, for example, in Marrakesh negotiations, for instance, in Paris Declaration. So it's a very global. As much as we are a country, but we depend on the United Nations. We depend on all these actors at a global scale. But I think what needs to happen is to ensure that at that level of climate change negotiations, at that level of sustainable development, we have institutions that could ensure that we prioritize a global environmental governance that would ensure that island countries, landlocked countries, and countries with high levels of poverty actually are not just victims of environmental degradation. We really need a very very robust global governance that will ensure that we have there's compliance with the laws globally. We manage to hold polluters accountable. We don't have a situation where developing countries are like the dumping sites for radioactive waste, for example, medical waste, for example, and so on. So in other words, if pollution cannot be tolerated in developed world, why should it be tolerated in less developed and underdeveloped countries of the world?